Excuse me. Hello, everybody.
Hello, Council President.
Hello, hi. Put us back on mute.
Good evening.
Just waiting to see, yep, all right, we can start once Councilman Johnson jumps on. And I think we'll have a quorum to get started.
What do you say?
All right, and I see Councilman Spadola, all right.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm just had some device issues. I'm switching back over, so you're gonna lose me for a sec. I'm coming right back in.
Okay. All right, I will be taking over as chair today due to, and something came up with Councilwoman Walsh, so I will be running the meeting this evening. So, just wanted to grab my agenda. All right. So good evening, everyone, and welcome to our Public Safety Committee meeting. I will first start with introductions from council members. Rashima Dixon, the Vice Chair of the Public Safety Committee, an at-large member. And next committee members.
Linda Gray, First District.
Chris Johnson, 7th District.
No, I'm sure.
James Spadola at large.
No, I was early, so I definitely would know this. Is there okay?
Chicago Council President.
Okay, so maybe it was enough students. Okay, well, maybe you just found.
It's for council members. All right. And
All right, I have to go.
and then I would say for, all right, perfect. All right, so on our agenda this evening, we're actually going to start with the ordinance 21-14, which is to authorize and approve 1-year extensions of a contract between the City of Wilmington and Asset Management Alliance for professional services building management that happens at the Public Safety Building. Who will be speaking to that this evening?
Good evening, Madam Vice Chair. Chief Robert Tracy. With me, I have Inspector Chuck Emery that oversees the support services and this contract. But this is to approve a 1-year extension contract between the City of Wilmington and Asset Management Alliance for professional service building management at the Public Safety Building. We are seeking authorization to enter up to 3 1-year extensions to our current contract with Asset Management. This is the same vendor we've used in the past and the same vendor that serves other city properties, including the city and county building. When this went out to bid, we entered into a 1-year contract. They were the only party to submit a proposal. The annual cost is approximately $303,339.65, and we had a modest increase over the past year to include additional sanitizing due to our building being open 24 hours a day, visitors coming to the building and processing prisoners, making sure that we keep everybody healthy and COVID free. This contract now will also include a twice weekly collection of trash and recycling from 2 dumpsters we have at the building. The services that we've had with the truck that we had from Public Works is going to be discontinued. So Asset Management has to pick up. We had to have an additional funding that I think every facility in the city has already gone to. This truck is not going to be able to pick up the trash because they get discontinued, that type of truck. So we had to ask Asset Management to pick it up. And then so in FY 2022, the contract will be estimated at $322,440. In the past, the city's truck has already neared the end of its cycle, and they're not going to replace it. We've had great experience with this vendor, with the folks who work tirelessly, keep our building Clean, which is open 24 hours a day. So with that, we're asking for authorization and approval of three one-year extensions.
Any questions from council members? Chief, I know that this is is this a usual just for any of our new council members? Is there, and probably say including myself, to new to the committee, is there, this is something that is repeated as far as the contract? Is that correct?
Yes, and it's optional. Each year, it's optional to extend 1 year out. And like I said, we put a proposal out a year ago, and they're the only ones that came back with a proposal. And it kind of makes sense that they do the other properties and keeping the consistency. But we're always after this 1 year extension, 3 1 year, we want to at least have that option if their pricing's right. And this is the way we're coming before council. And Inspector Chuck Emery's on the line. He can go into greater detail of the reasoning working with that side of the house within the police department.
Madam Councilwoman?
Yes, Inspector?
Just like the chief said, we did put it out for bid, and this is the only company that put in a bid for us. With this being a 24-hour facility that's open, it's imperative that we have a company that we trust. They work well with everyone here. They're available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And since we've been using them, they know the building, the ins and outs of it, and it just helps it move smoothly.
All right. Great. Thank you, Inspector, and thank you, Chief. Is there any other questions from council members before I go to the public if they have any questions on that contract? All right, seeing none. Is there a question from the public regarding this specific piece of legislation? Mr. Colin Manoli?
Hi, how's everyone doing tonight? So my one thought was, why should we be rewarding the behavior of the Wilmington Police Department with 3 separate 1 year extensions when they have brutalized a peaceful queer Black teenager protester and locked him up? And it was Chief Tracy's nephew that did so. And I don't think we should reward their behavior with never-ending funding. And I think we should instead, maybe give them a 1 year extension, but we should not be, enabling their destructive behavior on, the Black community in Wilmington.
Thank you, Mr. Collin. Next, Ms. Monique Nicole. Monique?
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm the guardian of Simba, so I do disagree with continuing to vote for budget increases or anything towards Wilmington PD until they make the efforts to resolve the issues that are traumatizing 14-year-old queer boys. I'm Simba's guardian, and it's been 6 months and their charges haven't been dropped. So I kind of, as a citizen, find it ridiculous to be talking about increasing a budget of a institution that can't even handle what is currently on their plate and the things that they have currently done wrong to the community. I find it odd to be wanting to give them more money to cause disruption and traumatize more Black people in the community, including Simba. So I suggest and I recommend that we do not discuss their budgets and we do not increase their budgets, and City Council should not be doing that until they resolve these discrepancies and these the lawlessness that happens in their troop.
Thank you, Ms.
And
Monique.
I feel as though that they should get no more money and the money should be moved to the people at this point.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Monique.
No problem. Be safe, y'all.
And I don't see any other hands raised. I'll come back to council members. Are there any other comments you would like to make or all right. Chief and inspectors, any last words that you wanted to say regarding the ordinance?
No, thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you. This is an ordinance and does have to be voted out of committee. So I will entertain a motion to move ordinance number 21-14 out of committee.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Non-voting? All right. So this item will now be on our next council meeting for now that the orders have been voted out of committee. Thank you, Chief, and thank you, Inspector. And our next item on the agenda tonight, oh, well, I guess it is also you again, Chief. So were you guys going to give us actually, I think you guys are for the rest, actually. So the presentation regarding Wilmington Police Department's Victim Services Unit and the Youth Response Unit.
Yes. Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. The presentation by Wilmington Police Department Victim Services Unit and Youth Response Unit. The head of this unit is Stephanie Hamilton, which will take over the presentation and introduce our team. But I just want to, several of these team members have been recognized for the work that they do, especially when it comes to victim services and especially the trauma-informed care of children within our community, that they do a tremendous job. And it's one of the things that they're invaluable to us in the police department. And so I just want to throw this over to Stephanie Hamilton, if that's okay with you, Madam Vice Chair, so she could take it, introduce, and really go into the what they do and inform everybody of the good work that they're doing in the city of Wilmington.
Yes, please do. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief, and thank you, Councilwoman. Hi, my name is Stephanie Hamilton. I am the supervisor of the Victim Services Unit at the Police Department. I see a lot of familiar faces, so I just want to say hi and thank you so much for giving us this time to talk. I love doing outreach to City Council because you all know your constituents and can be a great referral source for us. So I just want to educate you a little bit on what we do. With me, I have Kelly Hatton, who is with A Seed of Hope Counseling. And then I also have Jennifer Carter and Anna Gibbs, who are two clinicians with the Youth Response Unit. So we made a brief PowerPoint to kind of walk you through the Victim Services Unit and Youth Response Unit. And then at the end, Anna and Jennifer are going to talk about specifically how to make referrals to the program and the work they do. And they are extremely important in this because they're the ones that are out with the youth doing the clinical work. So I want to give them time to also talk about that. So I don't have control of the PowerPoint. So if we could move it forward. Thank you. So just a little structural information. In the Victim Services Unit, we have 4 other civilian employees, a Victim Services Specialist, a Domestic Violence Coordinator, a Hispanic Victims Case Coordinator, and Victim Services Support Personnel. 2 of those positions are city funded. And 2 are grant funded through the Criminal Justice Council. We also have the Youth Response Unit, and that's made up of a program coordinator and 2 clinicians. And then additionally, we have a third program that goes under the Youth Response Unit, which is the Youth Intervention Specialist. And that's also a city-funded position that works with youth who need behavioral interventions. And he works really closely with our clinicians and with us in victim services to make sure the care is really specialized to that child and what they need. Next slide, please. So we get referrals a lot of different ways. When the police are called, they provide victims with what's called a Victim's Bill of Rights card. It's a small blue card that includes everything that a victim might need after the police have left, including our phone numbers and instructions on how to get a copy of the police report. So that's usually our biggest referral source. We pull police reports, we review them, we look for victims that might have special needs, who might be extremely vulnerable, who might have things that we can help with. We get referrals from schools, community agencies, parents. Really just getting the word out helps us get referrals. Next slide, please. So we are civilians. We have a variety of backgrounds. Some of us are social workers. Some of us have counseling backgrounds, criminal justice degrees, but we are civilians in the police department. To give you an idea of what our caseload looks like, the Victim Services Unit worked with 1,272 new victims of crime last year. Now, we reviewed over 3,000 police reports and outreach to over 3,000 victims, but these were victims that we actually opened cases with and helped after the crime. And between the new victims and the carryover victims that we get, we really work with about 170 victims each month. And I think what really struck me this year when I was doing the statistics is that we have had a steady increase. Traditionally, we used to do about 150 victims a month, and 2 years ago it was 160, and this year we finished with an average of 170 victims per month. So the need is there, and we're happy to fill that need, but it continues to climb. Next slide. Our services really are centered around the victim and what the victim might need. So we meet with them, we talk about what that loss might look like for them, specifically with what happened to them. We do a lot of safety planning with victims of domestic violence. We refer our victims to the sexual assault hotline and to community resources. We like meeting face-to-face. COVID has kind of put a wrench in that to a degree, but we have been working full-time and providing services all throughout COVID. So again, last year we did 243 office, home, and field visits. We were called in to assist 61 times after hours. A lot of those times are to support families of homicide and to even sometimes help with the death notification. And then the other big component to our work is helping victims access victims' compensation, which is a fund through the state. And so we helped 236 victims apply for compensation related to the financial loss that their crime created. So I'm going to turn this over now to Kelly Hatton, who's the owner of the Seat of Hope Counseling, and she's going to pick up and talk about the Youth Response Unit. So if you could move to the next slide, and I'll turn it over to Kelly.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having us. My name is Kelly Hatton, and I'm from a Seat of Hope Counseling Services, Counseling Center, sorry. And I'm here to talk about Youth Response Unit. So the Youth Response Unit is a partnership with a Seat of Hope Counseling Center, the Division of Prevention and Behavioral Health Services, as well as the City of Wilmington. The program started back in April of 2018, and what we do is we offer short-term counseling for children and adolescents who have either experienced or witnessed a traumatic event. And I know Stephanie was saying her statistics for victim services in 2020, we served 213 children. Sorry, the next slide, please. Thank you. So the modalities that the two therapists, Jennifer Carter and Anna Gibbs using their services is what's called CFTSI, and that stands for Child and Family Traumatic Stress Intervention, as well as Trauma Focused Cognitive Behavioral Therapy, or TFCBT. So these interventions, CFTSI is a short-term intervention. It's usually about 5 to 8 sessions, depending on the youth and family's needs, and it is working closely with the family as a unit. TFCBT is a little bit longer term. And that is also focusing on the traumatic event that the child or youth has experienced, again, working closely with the family unit. We provide community-based counseling and crisis intervention services. As Stephanie has said, COVID has created some obstacles that we were able to work within. Initially, we were providing the telehealth sessions, and now have moved back into community-based following safety procedures. So the other component of what we do is providing education about how trauma affects children, adolescents, and how to best support the children and adolescents who have experienced trauma. And some of the ways that we do that is through centers. We also recently, I did a training with the learning pods, as well as schools. And in 2020, we had 588 clinical contacts and about 251 clinical sessions in 2020. Can I have the next slide? Sorry. Thank you. So I was saying about how COVID-19 has affected the services that we provide. Like I said, initially we were providing telehealth, and then have since switched back to doing community-based interventions. We do have precautions in place, such as the office space is sanitized. We have things like masks, social distancing, and also we still offer virtual or telehealth as families feel comfortable. So our services have been adjusted, but they have not been reduced, just as Stephanie had talked about with the increase in service. With COVID, there seems to have been an increase in need. It could just be completely COVID related, or other factors that are involved of children and youth experiencing traumatic events. Stephanie, do you want me to do this one?
Well, Jennifer and Anna should be able to unmute. So if you
Okay.
want to turn it over to them, we can, or if you want to.
Hi, I'm Anna Gibbs. I'm one of the clinicians. And this slide is just showing like what we hope to accomplish while we're working with the families. We're hoping to reduce some of the symptoms of trauma. We educate the families of what they could see. We let them know that sometimes trauma symptoms, they don't always show up right away. It's kind of an up and down thing. And we're also normalizing like that, your reaction to this is normal, but what happened to you was not normal. Yeah. So it's a lot of education, it's a lot of family work to improve communication between the child and the parent. Mm-hmm. And we have been able to work longer, even though it's a short-term program. Lately, we've been able to work longer with families as needed. And also we are now, sometimes we're able to work with some people, some of the younger adult people that are over age 18. Yeah.
And if we can move to.
Next slide. So you can reach us. Our office number is the 576-3183 number. Anybody can contact us. Right now, most of our referrals come from victim services. We do get some referrals from the police officers. We have been getting phone calls from families that said, a police officer was at my home and I was talking about my child and they told me to call this number. So we have been getting phone numbers from officers making referral, telling the families to give us a call.
Yes.
For the victim services unit, my number is up there, the 576-3622. I can make sure the person gets connected with the right victim advocate. There's also a lot of information on the city website. So there is a tab for victim services under the police department, and there's a tab for the youth response unit. You can download their brochure. And if anyone ever has an event that needs copies of the brochure or needs information provided, we're also happy to do that, mail it out, whatever keeps people safe. But we want to make sure that information is really out there, because our goal is to help people and be there during sometimes the hardest times for a family. So that really is what we're asking, is to get referrals and to help people heal after a traumatic event.
I just wanted to say one more thing. It's a free service. Yes, it's a free service.
Thank you so much for the presentation, ladies. And I will say that probably was one of the great points at the end, that it's a free service that is provided. So thank you for adding that into that as well. Councilman Johnson.
Thank you very much, ladies. I appreciate the presentation on your comprehensive program. Really just had a question about victim compensation. Does your unit actually help fill out the applications for VCAP funds, or do you just direct them to the state?
So we help people fill them out. We a lot of times the form is confusing. People are already overwhelmed from the trauma that they've been through, and it makes no sense to hand them a piece of paper and tell them to fill it out. So a lot of those office and home visits really are people coming to us, or we going to them, filling out the paperwork, submitting it, and then really advocating on their behalf with the compensation program to ensure that if there's bills or there's a need to move, that's articulated to the investigators as quickly as possible.
Okay, great. I just wanted to, because I've always had many constituents reach out with this issue, and it's always a very confusing road with the state. So I just wanted to make sure that you're continuing to assist with the actual applications.
Oh, absolutely.
Thank you.
And I would say, please send people to us so that we can help with that process. And same thing, there's never a charge or a fee for our help and our services. And we would rather sit down and make it really clear at the beginning than try to catch up on the back end. So, just send people to us and we'll go from there.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilman Johnson. Next up is Councilman Spadola.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. I don't have a question. I just wanted to say, I really appreciate the work all the victim services units do, especially the one in Wilmington. I know it's it's very valuable work. Not only are you helping the victims, but I really think you're also preventing crime by helping build a relationship with people affected by crime in a way that maybe police officers are not best suited to. I know you really get to know the victims and help them navigate the network of resources and build trust. So thank you all for the work you do.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Spadola. And next, Councilwoman Gray.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. Thanks for the presentation. And I wanted to say that a lot of your funds come from court fees, VCF, that I used to collect for you. But I have a question about how traumatic does it have to be for you to help the person? Like, I had a constituent that had gunshots in her car and her house and everything. And I thought she said that she was told there's no money available. Have you run out of money, or is that not the type of situation that you would help?
So two pieces to that. So we're the victim services unit in the police department. What is collected from court fines and costs is the victims compensation program. And that program is actually under the Attorney General's office and part of the state. So what we do is we help people apply. We have an extremely minimal emergency fund from the police department to help with very short-term band kind of financial needs, but the bulk of the financial help for victims of crime in the state is the compensation program. So as far as the emergency funding that we have, it's extremely limited. We help people apply to the compensation program, and that might be what your constituent is referring to. The crimes that are required to be approved for victims compensation are very narrowly defined. And so part of what we do is educate people on if their crime is a covered crime, and then look for either alternatives or other solutions. So I would encourage, if there is a concern, please reach out. I can meet with the person and just verify that their crime was or wasn't covered and talk through the process.
Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you. And I know Councilwoman Walsh wanted me to ask this question on her behalf. And I think you already answered it, actually. But she just wanted to clarify, how do you typically get calls like the same day as a trauma, or is it typically post-trauma and I know you said that you give out the Bill of Rights card and you give it to the victims and their families. Is that the main process of how do you typically get calls that night, for example, if you give it out that day, or do you see it typically happening afterwards?
So it's very dependent on the crime. Our on-call schedule is usually reserved for homicides and other needs where possibly a detective is involved. Our normal hours are Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. We get a lot of walk-ins. We get a lot of calls, from people who are immediately given the card. I would say the majority, the follow-up is within a week. So whether that's us calling the victim reaching out to us, I will turn it over to the youth response unit for them to talk about their program. We're all available to be called out and really assess whether that needs to happen the night of or the next day. And I know with kids, a lot of times they're asleep or there's something going on in the house where we want to get them stabilized before we put a therapist in front of them. So we really assess the situation, but I will also ask Jennifer and Ann if they have anything to add.
I want to add that normally when we get the calls, especially when there's a homicide, usually the family is preparing so much for the funeral and they're overwhelmed. So we're not usually really setting up a time to meet with them until after the funeral, because we find that there's a lot going on beforehand, but we do reach out to them before the funeral. And most times it's usually scheduled after. The intake is usually scheduled after, because they're grieving, their process is, they're having their, grieving process. So sometimes it can be more overwhelming when we come in too soon, but we always reach out to them afterwards.
That's good. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Kelly.
Oh, sorry. I will add one of the goals, especially of CFTSI, the Family Traumatic Stress Intervention, is to prevent turning into a PTSD sort of reaction or response. So there is prevention in there through the one intervention. The TFCBT, the longer term intervention, is usually for people who have had a PTSD type of response. So Jennifer and Anna are amazing with working with the families and the youth to prevent some.
Awesome. Thank you for answering that. And I'll get that back to Councilman Walsh as well, to make sure that she gets the information. And also, so how long does a victim and their family may be working with your units?
Is this for youth response or?
For both.
So for youth response, we can go, I would say minimum would be 3 months. I just recently closed the case that I've had open for a year. So it just it depends on the needs of the family, the needs of the child. Sometimes we open cases and they decide after a while that they don't want treatment anymore. So it just varies. It just varies.
There are times we may have to refer them for longer term services or to another agency, depending on the need.
Okay.
It is very child and family specific, and we will refer to, like Jennifer and Anna said, other agencies as well as back to the Division of Prevention and Behavioral Health Services if there is more intensive services required. So there is a lot of different interactions with different community organizations that are in existence to help support some of the children and family if that is what is needed.
And Stephanie, is yours pretty much the same? I'm sorry.
No, sorry. Yeah, ours really is dependent on what the victim wants. A lot of times there are also social workers in the Department of Justice. So a very natural handoff is at the time of arrest as it moves into trial. We normally do a warm handoff to those social workers so they can explain the trial process. But as many of you know, not everything goes to trial. So we will really stick with a victim until they determine they no longer need us. Specifically for domestic violence, I've been with the city for almost 20 years now. There are people that I still talk to. Domestic violence is not a quick fix sometimes, and we will stick with someone while they're going through their safety planning, their life changes. So we're extremely flexible in that we know that sometimes it takes a little bit of time.
And thank you all for your response. And the reason why I asked that is because when you had talked about the numbers earlier, I really wanted to commend you on the work, because especially if you're working with these families for such a long period of time, right? And having, the victims unit is seeing 170 each month. And then you have 213 last year for the youth victims unit. It just kind of, compared to, just want people to hear how long and what that process looks like, so that it is a longer term process and you really are doing a lot of work within that period of time. So I just wanted to give people an idea of what that process looked like and the intensified cases of how you work with people.
I really appreciate that because there's 5 other people that aren't on the video tonight, and they do great work. And you can have like 53 cases during the summer. So our caseload is 34 people sometimes, but then it's also 53 when it's really busy. So they are extremely hard workers.
Well, again, I'll echo what Councilman Spadilla was saying. Well, thank you for the work that you're doing within your units. And any other questions from council members prior to going to see if anybody from the public has any comment regarding the presentation? Seeing none. And I think Ms. Monique has her hand up again.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
My question is, what about victims who are traumatized by police brutality? Where do those victims and those children traumatized by police officers in their community have that type of support.
Are
And
you answering, or do you want me to wait?
that if you can wait. And then again, to refer these youth to the same people that have like that are super predators to them and that they're fearful of. Like with Simba, I haven't had anyone reach out. No one has reached out to Simba, and it's been 6 months. So what are the qualifying terms of this? And in the Black community who is continuously traumatized by the Wilmington PD, I again ask that City Council use the power that they have to not vote to increase anything for Wilmington PD until they resolve and solve and hold accountable the officers that are currently using their badge to brutalize the community that they're supposed to be serving. So as a citizen, like, I'm begging y'all to flex and not vote on anything until these cases of police brutality and lawlessness are actively being solved, and until these people who are in jail right now waiting for a court and waiting for a court date are released. There's so many things that are more important to the community that's going on in the community that the community is suffering from, that to talk about this and to not deal with the real issues is buffoonery to me. And I just don't see how any budget increase can help people who are brutalized by the city, and people are suffering from the city. So again, my question is, what about the victims affected by police brutality? For example, Simba, who is 14 years old, who was assaulted by James Roy, the officer, and we have Chief Tracy here on the line. What about that? What about these injustices? But like, let's talk, like, how do we use the money to help citizens that are suffering from the system?
All right, thank you, Ms. Monique. And Stephanie, did you want to answer a portion of that, just as far as, if you wanted to? I know you wanted to chime in.
Yeah, I would just add that we understand that not everyone is comfortable working with a program that is in the police department, but our goal is to find a community partner that we can make a referral to. So again, the phone numbers were up, and they're also on the city website. And we want to acknowledge that, and we don't want to leave anyone without help. So we would work to find a community partner.
Mm-hmm. All right. Councilman Congo, Council President, I'm sorry.
That's fine. Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate that. So just wanted to, so right now there is no community partner that the community can go to in cases of police brutality. I think it was said that there would need a community partner would need to be found.
As far as any trauma treatment, we would look at the different counseling agencies that we work with and find one that's a good fit.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
And I think to the comment, as well as to Council President's comment, maybe we can look into and figure out, with them, what that process could look like, or what type of help, find some supportive systems to address that. If that's it, and also finding out how many cases I would say there have been in the community regarding that specific issue. Council President.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. So what was the, I appreciate your comment, but what is the follow-up going to be? Is that something that we're going to initiate, or someone on the line will initiate, so that we can answer her question?
I can't answer that, so I'm going to see if the chief has an answer to that question.
Madam Vice Chair, we have a process in place to investigate any complaint on any actions of our police officer, and to go to Office of Professional Standards, to go online, to go to the city county building, to come into the police station here. And if there's any sworn statement, and/or we'll investigate anything on the actions of our police officers. As far as the process that's going on with this specific case, it's now in the hands of the court, hand of the prosecutor's office. And as far as victim services, they can call victim services to see if there's any type of recourse that this young man can have, and they can direct them to the right agency to give them the help that they're seeking.
Council President, did that satisfy your answer to your question?
Yes, is that number available so that we can make it public? Can we put it in the chat, or can we say the number?
Council President, it's on our website under Victim Services and the Youth Response Unit, and that can be made available to the public.
Does anyone know that number offhand so we can say it now while we're in the meeting?
Would you be able to bring up the slide that just ended, the last slide from the presentation?
I can add our victim services main number is 576-3622, and the youth response number is 576-3183. There you go.
Okay, thank you.
And Chief, correct me if I'm wrong, you're saying that individuals from the community that also have have something as far as like police brutality, that they can also call that number as well?
I calling that number, they can actually, if it doesn't hit the criteria, that they actually have a vetting process. If it hit, they can actually refer them to a place that can get them the help that they're seeking. As far as it comes to accusations and complaints of police brutality, we'll make sure that's investigated wholly through our Office of Professional Standards. And at the end of the year, which we just released a report that's online as far as complaints that have come in and complaints that complaints and their findings is online as well.
All right. Thank you, Chief. I just muted myself as I was going to the next person. And I see the hand of Colin. Did you have a question regarding the presentation?
Yes, I did. So let me pull it up here. Okay, so I believe that the trauma unit should actively reach out to Simba because he's been traumatized by the Wilmington Police Department, and he's on home confinement with a homophobic person, and he's like a 14-year-old, queer Black kid. He has a 4.2 GPA. He has a bright future, and I'm urging you all to use your power and connections to contact the chief, Kathleen Jennings, the prosecutor, who's Anthony Longo, to begin the healing process of Simba's trauma by dropping the charges placed against him. The charges are simply false. He's facing felony assault on a law enforcement officer after saying to a cop, the chief's nephew, "If I say Trump 2020, will you let me through?" as they were blocking Market Street. Simba has been a crucial figure in the racial and economic justice movement and in his community. And he is facing much more charges than the other person also falsely arrested that day, Warren. And that person, Warren, is not a part of the movement. Simba and Warren are the only Black Lives Matter protesters arrested in Wilmington, other than after the first night of the George Floyd uprising. And the chief and his nephew, and honestly, all complacent parties are throwing the book of all their anger at the protests at this 14-year-old Black queer child with a 4.2 GPA, who's the vice president of his Black student union. What about his trauma? What about his, seeing to his future? I just think that he has such a bright future, and the state is what's holding him back, and he did nothing, and it's on video in 2 different angles, and it's indisputable. And the fact that the chief pressed on with these absolutely racist and vile charges is abhorrent. And the chief saying that they're going to investigate themselves is a joke. The chief was involved with the murder of a man named Laquan McDonald in Chicago.
Mr. Collin, can we stay on the presentation, please?
Well, this is relevant to the presentation because it's relevant to the trauma of youth here. So it intersects both topics in the presentation, because the man who's overseeing the department oversees the trauma that his officers inflict on youth here. So I believe it's relevant. So to continue my statement, Laquan McDonald was murdered by a few officers.
I'm going to have to cut you off if you continue on that piece.
Okay, well, Chief Tracy is a murderer, so cut me off.
Thank you, Mr. Collin. Is there any other comment from our presentation from council members before we move on to the next update regarding the police department? Councilman Johnson?
Yes, Chairwoman Dixon, I appreciate the opportunity. I just wanted to address something on behalf of many of my colleagues on City Council. I urge the public to look at the action City Council has taken post George Floyd. And in fact, we passed expansive legislation regarding a civilian review board last year. So, we urge the public to aid us in working on the necessary changes we need in Dover to make sure we have a fully functioning board. Because if you've been paying attention or haven't been paying attention, a lot of roadblocks we have are because the state law, certain barriers are set up. So the fight truly isn't over. And I really urge the public to join us and continue in that fight. But, City Council, we would continue, along with Council President Congo, continue to advocate for the changes that are necessary. But at this time, our hands are tied, literally, in regards to investigating police misconduct. So, we certainly hear you, we understand you, but, we've been working on this for years, and definitely since George Floyd, we've been taking the steps, but we need the public to be there with us. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilman Johnson. Council President?
Yes, thank you, Chairwoman. I don't think that council realizes how much power we really have. We can't directly investigate any police activity, but we can do, I think, much more if we realize the power that we have. I mean, it's okay to have a civilian review board, but we can't wait for Dover. That who knows how long that's gonna who knows how long that process is going to take. But I think this is something local that we need to make sure that we're bringing attention to. And if the police department is, if they're guilty, we need to make that a priority. If they're not, we need to make sure that they're clear. But I do think we have to pay special attention to this and to other cases. And one of the community members put it precisely when they say we have to flex. And it's not always depending on Dover. We have many more ways that we can influence the way our police department responds to our community. And I think that it's time that we start using our strength and not minimize what we can really bring to the city of Wilmington. Thank you.
Thank you, Council President. And I do want to keep us on more sort of discussion on the items on the agenda so that we are not violating FOIA based on what was not on the agenda. I'm sure that we can talk to Councilwoman Walsh about potentially having a more in-depth conversation regarding the police brutality component and how the community can interact in that space at a next meeting. So I just wanted to add that into the discussion. So I will thank you, ladies, for your presentation today regarding the Victims Services Unit and our Youth Services Unit as well. So thank you all for presenting on that and giving us all the information. And I will move to our last agenda item for this evening, is to get an update on the Police Academy class. Chief, will you be speaking to that?
Madam Vice Chair, yes, I'll be doing the introduction, but I'll be handing it over with your permission to Captain Anthony Bowers, that oversees our Human Resources Unit and oversees the Police Academy under Inspector Emery's supervision as an inspector. So 100 Wilmington Police Academy is ongoing. It's progressing smoothly. I'm very proud of the work of our Human Resources under the leadership of Inspector Emery and also Captain Bowers. They've been able to keep the Academy program moving amidst the COVID-related health guidance and during some unprecedented times, trying to get an Academy class going where others have somehow either canceled or postponed. We're able to move forward under the guidelines and staying within the guidelines set by the governor and the CDC. We'll be issuing our next quarterly recruitment report in April. But in the meantime, I'd like to turn over to Captain Anthony Bowers of our Human Resource Division to provide some more information, how the Academy is progressing, and to answer any of your questions. So if I may, I'd like to hand it over, Madam Vice Chair.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, Captain Bowers.
Thank you, Chief Tracy. Good evening, Madam Vice Chair, and everybody else. The 100 Police Academy, we're starting our 17th week. Like the Chief said, our safety protocols are going real good. Everybody's keeping safe, our staff and recruits. We have 19 recruits, and they're online to graduate April 30th.
Thank you, Captain Bowers. Council President.
Yes, I want to thank you, Chairwoman Dixon and Walsh, for adding this to the agenda. So they was said that there are 19 police people in the police academy right now. How many of those are Black?
Mr. President, there's 5 Black males and 1 Black female, and we have 4 white females and 1 Hispanic.
5 Black males and 1 Hispanic.
And 1 Black female, yes.
Okay. Who's in charge in the police department of minority recruitment? Is there a certain person, or is there a group? Or I'm
in charge of the recruitment, human resources. Inspector Emery oversees me. On our staff, we have a diverse group who handles recruitment. Right now, since COVID, we haven't had a chance to go face to face. However, we do have on the website, on the city website, there's a card that people who have interest can fill out a card, and it comes straight to us. Right now, we have 131 people whose interest for us, and once we do another academy and we open another process, we'll reach out to them 131 people and let them know.
Just a follow-up, Madam Chair.
Yes.
Is that specifically for minority recruitment? Like, do we have a group that is specifically for minority recruitment? Or is it overall recruitment?
That's overall, sir.
So we don't have a group specifically for minority recruitment?
Our recruitment team goes to a lot of minority, like I said, Black colleges, Black-owned centers. We also go to all colleges. So we have diversity on our recruitment team, and I think we do a great job of, just having a lot of diverse on that.
Okay, just a follow-up, Madam Chair, please.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
But is there a group that is specifically geared towards minority recruitment?
No, sir. We recruit.
Okay.
The recruitment team recruits everybody.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I'll let some other council members go. Thank you.
Thank you, Council President. Councilman Spadola.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. Thank you, Captain. I'm curious, what type of headwinds would you say the recruitment team faces in terms of competing with the state police, the county police, the feds, agencies that pay more, provide take-home cars? I guess I'm answering my own question in a sense, but what have you found? Because I think, to echo what the council president's saying, recruiting diverse candidates is tough for municipalities when other agencies are picking them up as quick as they can, paying them more, offering them better benefit. So I'm curious, Captain, what do you think could Wilmington do to help increase more diverse candidates? And is it something about the process? I'll stop there. I'll stop there.
I think as a police department, we're already doing that. We're out on the streets. So we're talking to young people on the streets, young Black males, white males, Hispanic, females, everything. I think officers are the best recruiting people that we have. So they're out there talking, since we can't do in-persons of like job fairs. And I think we're on the street and talking to people and trying to get them to join the police department. That's the best way to have all the residents in the city to stay here and be a part of our police department. So we are doing a great job at that.
Sure. Madam Vice Chair, if I could.
Yes.
Has the department ever looked at, now my understanding of the recruitment process, and please correct me if I'm wrong, is there's only an academy after council approves it once attrition hits a certain rate. If somebody tells you today that they want to be a Wilmington police officer, what is the process of that applicant in terms of, is it an officer contacting them every 2 months saying, hey, just checking in, let's go on a ride along, you want to check out what our undercover unit's doing? Like, what is that process? Or are they, they telling you they're interested, and then a year later they're getting a phone call saying, oh, the academy's in 2 months?
No, when we get the interest cards, we every couple of months we'll reach out to them and let them know that right now we're not open application. However, please keep your interest, and we'll let you know when our applications are opening up. About the ride alongs right now, because of COVID, we had trying to keep everybody safe. We don't do them right now. But however, once things start opening up, we'll definitely be doing ride alongs like we did in the past.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Spadola. Is that were you finished?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, just wanted to make sure I didn't cut you off. Councilwoman Gray.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. My question is, what specifically are you doing to weed out candidates that are prone to violence, especially domestic violence? I mean, specifically, do they have to give up their email address, their Facebook ID? That's my question. What are you doing specifically to weed out or to identify people that are prone toward domestic violence?
Yes, ma'am. We do extensive background from the beginning. We do a background to make sure that they have no, something on the record that they cannot be police officers. After that, they're assigned. Everybody's assigned to an investigator to do a background, and everything they have a packet, all the Facebook, Instagram, or anything like that that can show them in the past maybe has said something in the past or did something in the past. That definitely is a part of the background investigation.
Thank you. Does that mean someone's looking at this material in the packet? Someone's actually going to their Instagram or their Facebook page?
Yes, ma'am. We have investigators that they actually go to their Instagram, their Facebook, or anything like. They actually go to people's. They have references. They go to people's neighbor's house. They talk to a lot of people who wants to be police officers.
Madam Vice Chair, follow up.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Lastly, I've asked several times which psychological tests that the candidates are given, and I've never gotten a distinctive answer. I know you give them a psychological test and they have to pass it in order to carry a weapon, but do you know the name of the test?
I don't know the name of this, man, but I know they do have to go to psychological doctor before they are even allowed to be a police officer. So I don't right now. I don't know the name of the test offhand.
Well, I'd like the name of the test. The procedure usually is, because I had to carry a weapon for the state, is you take the test and then a doctor, hopefully a psychiatrist, interprets your answers. So I just want to know the name of the specific test that you're using.
Yes, ma'am. I will get that name and I will follow up with you to make sure that everybody will have that name of the test.
Thank you.
Madam Vice Chair.
Oh, go ahead.
That test, we've actually put that out. It's MMPI that the psychologist is using. That's recognized across the United States to actually try to bring out some of those traits and some of those things that would probably disqualify individuals from becoming a police officer.
Thank you. I'm familiar with that. Like I said, I approve. Thank you.
Thank you. Council President, and then I'll come back to Councilman Spadola.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I know Councilwoman Gray asked for continuous, I think it was around like just some continuous conversation and updates around recruitment and specifically minority recruitment. I just would like her to speak on that. I just want to make sure that I'm referencing that correctly. And if that is what she asked for, I just want to know, has she been receiving it or has council been receiving it on the recruitment efforts of the police department for minorities?
Madam Chair, may I address that?
Yes, Councilwoman Gray.
Yes, I did ask for quarterly reports and I was getting them. I can't say I got one in January, but I did get them last year. And I must say that from the reports and the information I got, there was an extensive recruitment effort to a lot of Black establishments, the schools, Philly radio stations, different festivals and things that the officers said they went to. So I did get it. I don't know if everyone got it. And I don't think when they sent me these reports, they said what they were doing each quarter. But in the beginning, they gave me the information of how they were going to recruit and what type of institutions they were going to go to for the minorities.
Just as a follow-up, Madam Chair.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So they gave Councilwoman Gray, they gave you a plan, or did they give you action that they have taken? Actions
that they had taken. Now, initially, they told me loosely a plan, like where they were going to go. Like I said, institutions, Black festivals, places like that. That was just what they were going to do. And then quarterly, I think I got statistics on the recruitment, but not actually what they had done during that quarter.
Okay, thank you.
I think the chief can speak to that because he's the one that was sending it to me.
Madam Vice Chair. Mayor?
Yep, Chief.
We sent it out in December to the whole council. End of December, the January report. It goes back with our overall plan. It's up online, updated each quarter. The next one will be coming out April 1st. It actually talks about our plan to try to prioritize and make sure that equally that we're looking to diversify the police department, where we're going as far as where we're recruiting, how we're recruiting, the type of social media that we're using, going to schools, going to faith-based organizations, going to police athletic leagues. The whole thing is detailed, not to take too much time on the meeting tonight, but it's very comprehensive. It's probably up to 25 pages right now from our plans and each quarter, what we're doing and how we continue the recruitment, and the breakdown in the numbers of the demographics of the individuals that applied and where we're at right now. So I think if the next one will be out April 1st, but it goes for what we're doing, how we're doing it, and then how we're doing in the academy and updating where we're at in the academy. So I was glad to at least give everybody an update. Tonight, I was glad it was on the agenda, give it an opportunity for Inspector Emery and also Captain Bowers to talk about the good work that they're doing as far as overseeing the recruitment, as overseeing the training, and having our officers ready to go to the street. So online, and I think it answers a lot of questions that might be asked tonight. And if there's some that are not, I'd be more than happy to discuss further.
Thank you, Chief. Did that answer your question, Council President, or did you want to have more dialogue on that?
Yes, I guess since I've been on council, there has only been one administration, and that was under Dennis Williams, who made it a priority, publicly made it a priority to make sure that the recruiting classes for the police department were made up of more minorities, and he did it. So have we gone to Dennis or anyone from that administration to find out, to former Mayor Dennis Williams, to find out what he did and how he was so successful? Because I remember one of the classes, if not more than one, the majority of them were Black and brown. Have we reached out to them to find out what they did? I don't believe they're going to the state. I don't believe they're going to we're losing them to the state or to the county. I just don't think that we're putting enough emphasis on making it happen. I guess because I'm confused about how he made it happen, how that administration made it happen, how he made it a goal. He talked about it publicly that that was one of his priorities, and it happened. I haven't heard, not saying that it hasn't happened, but I haven't heard our administration make those same priorities. And it's definitely not happening because the recruitment class after recruitment class is not, they don't have enough minorities in my eyes. So I just, like, what we're doing isn't working. So we have to do something differently. So I guess I would want our future conversations to be around what are we going to do differently to make it happen. We asked for plans, but the plan isn't working. So how do we regroup and make minority recruitment a priority? Thank you, Madam Chair, for your time.
Thank you, Council President. I think next was Councilman Spadola.
Thank you. Yeah, just to follow up. Do we have data on when somebody fills out an interest card to join the police department or applies, and then we follow up with them and we lose them somewhere in the process? Is there somebody following up with them to determine, one, where they went, and two, why they went there?
Are you saying if they go to another police department?
Yeah, I mean, because if we lose them, if somebody initially applies to Wilmington and then is like, no, I'm not going to Wilmington, I am going to the county because of XYZ, are we tracking that at all?
No.
Any data? Do we have data on when somebody applies and we lose them? Do we have any data on that?
If they're in the process and they drop out of the process, our team talked to them and we asked them why they're dropping out. Mm-hmm. And if they're saying they're going to another police department, they say it's just their preference. It's just something that maybe they want to do, or anything, something like that. But we definitely asked them. We don't keep any data, but we keep data of people who drop out, but we don't keep data of why they decide to go to another police department or another agency.
Gotcha. I mean, because I think it would be helpful, and even Council President and I, we might approach it from different angles, but I think we're trying to get at the same thing in the sense that if we had the data on why we're losing people, why we're not recruiting the most qualified people, you could then come to council and say, look, this is why we lost 20 qualified diverse candidates. They went to the state or they went elsewhere. But without that data, it's hard for us to know how we can help you, in terms of if we're not offering something that another agency is.
That's something that I can talk to the chief, and we can, Inspector Emery, we can look at. But we definitely contact them when they do drop out or they don't show up to a certain, phase of the process. Like I said, but keeping the data is something that I definitely can talk to my superiors and make sure that they're on board with it.
Thank you.
And I think to both of your points thus far, having maybe and allude to what you said, Council President, have a conversation with maybe the mayor's office and some of the others to try to figure out how to incorporate more of a focus on minority recruitment and retention. I think is important. So maybe we can have more of a discussion about what that looks like and how that could be incorporated into it, and then how that data is collected and where and how do we make sure we can access it. Councilwoman Gray.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. I think the prior mayor Williams hired a consultant, which basically is doing what Councilman Spadola and Councilwoman Dixon just discussed. He probably did an analysis and determined where the effort was needed, but the past mayor Williams hired a consultant to make sure there was a higher number of minorities on the police force.
Thank you for adding that in.
Madam Vice Chair, Chief Tracy.
Yes, Chief.
We kind of went over the way we recruited, how we tried to pick up diversity, the amount of the efforts that we're doing. Inspector Emery spoke to this for about 25 minutes to a half hour. I'd like him, if he can hit on some of the points using National Organization of Black Law Enforcement Executives, how we've gone away, and I've sent Inspector Emery down. Every police department in the nation is experiencing what we're experiencing. Some can't even fill up their police departments. Some can't even get anywhere near their budgeted strength. And, this is across the board, not just for African Americans, but for all demographics becoming police officers. But I think it's important to see the amount of effort that goes in. I don't want it to get lost here as far as what's being done. So Inspector Emery, could you run through all the things that we were doing under your leadership and then getting out and your experience on how to bring more minorities, and just in the state, we're the most diverse police department in the whole state. We're not losing individuals to other police departments. And especially if they choose to go to other police departments, there's their choice. We are getting quality candidates, and we're going to continue to try to diversify this department. But there's a lot of challenges that have been going on, and I'd love for Inspector Emery to hit on some of those things, because really tasked him with making some of the changes, anything that's needed to make sure that if there's something that needs to be changed, we have the latitude to do it. We're open to make sure that we can do everything we can. So Inspector Emery, can you please go into some of the things that you and I talk about on a daily basis on how to improve what's being discussed today?
Yes, sir. Again, we do a lot of recruiting. The best recruiters are our officers. Our minority officers are our best recruiters. They speak with the people that they deal with and see every day. They speak with family members. I went away to a conference in DC. Recruiting is down everywhere. As the chief said, people can't get to their authorized strength. And with everything that's happened in the past, recruiting is going to be even harder. So we work hard. We spend a lot of time at different schools. I'm part of Noble. We continue to recruit as an organization to get Black and brown officers on all three major departments, and even the smaller ones collectively. We meet monthly. We talk about how we're going to recruit for all agencies, right? And the one thing that we also do that no other agency does, because I was at a conference and none of these other agencies thought about this, is we go to these churches. We go to church. My pastor read out our bulletin about our recruiting for this class and gave them my phone number for them to call me to have these conversations with me. Right? Our officers go to the churches in the city of Wilmington and do the exact same thing about putting out the bulletin. St. Paul's Church, my grandmother's old church, they know me. So they had the conversation with me and direct the people to see and talk to me about trying to become a police officer. Wilmington, yes, that's my preference. But if they want to go somewhere else, I'm still going to have a conversation with them. So we do a whole lot, but it is extremely hard, right? But we do a great job of what we do. And even during the COVID era, right, we're doing our best because I work with inside Noble and we have a relationship with DSU. and trying to get officers to come to this police department. So those are some of the things that we continue to do and have done in the past.
Thank you, Inspector Emery. And Councilman Spadola.
Thank you. Yeah, for my council member colleagues, I do want to, as the former one-man recruitment unit for the Newark Police Department, I can attest to how difficult it is to recruit any cop, especially diverse candidates. It's just this, and this, I was doing this years ago, let alone the recent incidents we have, which I'm sure make it even harder now. My question, has Wilmington ever done a lateral hiring process with a signing bonus or anything? Or has that ever been discussed? Save some money on the academy side even?
No, in my time here, Councilman, no, we haven't. We've had some recruits that were officers in other areas, but we've had them go to our police academy because of COPT standards, and also making sure that when they go out, if there's anything that they were doing in other places, they understand it better coming here to Wilmington. We don't have a process once we drop below the 5% or down 5% of the department. We come to council. We ask for permission to start a process for an application process to begin the hiring process. We don't have a rolling list here like other police departments do. And right now we're not doing lateral transfers in between because there's certain training aspects that I kind of don't want to lose because of the type of policing that we're doing in an urban area that I think is a little bit different than certain areas that it's not in suburban areas. So right now, those old things that could be on the table to be considered, but we're not doing them at this time.
Gotcha. But Chief, if the county and the state, see the utility in them, do you think it's something that is worth considering? Where even, I think that the last I remember, the state had a 6-week academy for, people that came from municipal academy. Surely there could be an abbreviated academy, so somebody could learn those urban aspects.
Oh, absolutely. There certainly can. We can do that. But because of our hiring process that we have in place and the way it's structured now, we would have to make substantial changes that we would go through before the council to get approval to do that as a running list or even transfers at a time when I don't have a police academy class. We're a very efficient police department where there's no really standalone units where there is a lot of instructors and trainers during the academy. They're actually on the street, and then I actually rotate them through. I don't really have a standing academy. I don't have a standing crisis management team. Everybody's cross-trained. But it's something that if something wants to have a lateral, we'd have to figure out a way. Can we introduce that person within a 5 to 6 week training and accelerated academy to bring them up to speed with what we want to do in our policy within the Wilmington Police Department. Others are doing it right now. The county is offering a $10,000 signing bonus for anybody that laterally transfers to their department. They talk about a take-home car. My God, they must have some heck of a budget to be able to do things at a tax base that's helping them do that. But bringing that, no one has left the Wilmington Police Department for that $10,000 or that car to go to county police. So I'm pretty proud of how our officers want to serve this community because they became Wilmington police officers to serve the city of Wilmington and haven't been drawn out by that signing bonus, lateral transfer, and a take-home car at this time. So that used to happen quite frequently from this department, but it's not really happening as much anymore. So I'm hoping that the morale and everything that's happening in this police department and the changes that we're making or we're striving to make and continue to have to do every single day is making that difference, sir.
Thank you, Chief. I'm glad to hear attrition. I'm glad to hear we're not losing people to the state and the feds and whatnot. But, I just want to reiterate, the council is here to work with you. If we do make those changes to the code, to get creative with the hiring process and whatnot, I think we'd all be happy to talk more, of course.
Right. Me too, sir.
Yeah, I think as much as we can know about what the challenges are, and then I'll be curious to know if I know some of the other places are having difficulties with recruitment at this point based on, what's happening currently across the country. Um, I was wondering if they're curious to, has anyone found a kind of a magic wand per se, as far as like what's really worked well for them, based on recruitment efforts since we know it's down in other areas. Chief?
Madam Vice Chair, it's, we go to industry conferences. We're on every morning. We get updates from a Police Executive Research Forum, International Associations of Chief of Police. It is probably, other than what is going on from last year and reform and everything else and necessary reform and change policy. And we're always looking at things that we need to do to improve, especially with community relations and partnership with the community. But the one that follows right after that is recruitment. And there's a lot of police departments where they're losing officers by the hundreds in some of the larger police departments. And these poor small police departments, if you get on the Delaware Chief Police Association, they're losing their officers as well. It seems to be, it's a bit of a crisis in the policing world as we speak, because attrition has picked up. Police departments, even in one of my former departments, they had to slow them down from leaving because they were leaving. They're all putting those eligible to retire, and then people that were not eligible to retire were just resigning where they had an opportunity where if they worked, they could have had a pension. It is an epidemic and a crisis in policing. I would be happy to share articles with the council that we see every day. We are looking for any way that we can to be ahead of the curve to make sure that we can get the diversity that we're looking for, that we prioritize, and that we're trying to get in the city. And then just getting up, we didn't even fill the amount of numbers in our class. We could have went up to 7 more people, but by the time the testing and Councilwoman Gray hit on it, when you can start going through the testing and the background checks, and then the eligibility to be a police officer and prior records. And then when you do the MMPI, where a psychiatrist, I cannot override the city psychiatrist as far as an appeal process. I have to accept the findings hired from the city. And then there's people that have come back and took the test again that psychiatrists passed. It was maturity factors. But there's certain things in backgrounds and everything, they're just not going to be good police officers, or we foresee that they might not be good police officers and a good fit for our city. So it is a concern. I hear all the concerns coming from council. I certainly have the same concerns. That's why I'm open to every idea of what we can do. And that's why Inspector Emery and Captain Bowers have a huge latitude of what we can do to change these things. HBCUs, we're at all the universities. We're at all these things. We have one of the biggest HBCU events in the United States now, thanks to all the things and the people that dedicated themselves to the city. We're at these events. We are trying to recruit. We're doing it. The amount of pastors that I've spoken to that have made announcements, and several of our candidates that are in the academy now, they first heard about that at their churches, because I have spoken to them, and I always ask a candidate in my interviews, how did you hear about this? And one said he hasn't been to church in a while, and he listened to the sermon, and he thought that's an epiphany that maybe he should become a cop, because he heard this and wanted a life of service, and he's in our academy now. I don't want to take up too much time. There's a lot of efforts that are in this quarterly report, very comprehensive, but I could certainly share a lot of things that every police department in the United States is going through. That being said, we will not relent. We will certainly give it a priority for diversity, and make sure that we can start having a police department that represents the demographics of this city, and then we're going to continue to do that. And with Inspector Emery and Captain Bowers and the rest of the team, and before that was Captain Sean Counts. And we work with the National Organization of Black Law Enforcement Executives. We look to them to find out recruiting, how departments are there anyone that's successful out there? And it seems there is a crisis in getting people to be police officers of all demographics, and which includes Black officers.
And I think to that, Chief, I think for us, I think we're just trying to make sure how we be as supportive as possible. And if there's changes that need to be made or how we can support, for example, if we know that certain folks are not passing the background checks, is there something that we need to work in on our end? Or is there some work that we need to do pre-work as far as with the mental health capacities in which we know our communities are faced with? How do we start to work on those things prior to them, for example, applying for the police department and working with them so that they have better chances of being able to be successful in the process. So just, I think for us, it's just how do we best work with everyone so that we can get, to a place that we're all looking for, what we're all talking about tonight, and be supportive in that space, not be as, we can be critical, but how can we work and make sure that we're best serving the city of Wilmington in general versus, trying to, I think that's ultimately our goal. Right?
Well, Madam Vice Chair, one of the things that we've actually, in the last couple of years in the classes, to kind of level the playing field, because filling out these applications, doing these things, that, sometimes we could lose candidates because of that confusion. We actually have calls, and we had to do it by Zoom this time around, but we have them come in first for the physical part. Anybody that's willing, that already applied, it's mandated that they come in and they get on the call to let them know exactly, giving them time to get ready for the physical. We're trying to train everyone to succeed. And then when it comes to the written test, we have mandatory tutoring for everyone that they have to go through the process. If you're now made it past the physical part, then the testing, then there's also an oral board where now instead of just written, we want to see people face to face, and that's part of the scoring process. We actually have them come in and they have to do tutoring for oral boards to prepare them to do well on the oral board. So these are things that we're just thinking outside the box. And these were ideas that Inspector Emery and at the time Captain Counts came up, and the rest of the team. They are part of a team over there that we all discussed together. And I thought it was a great idea, and a great idea on their part to prepare people to succeed. And I think it has helped, but it's not anywhere where we need to be right now. And like you said, Madam Vice Chair, we're open to a lot of suggestions. We appreciate all the support we get on this, because I think we're all trying to get to the same place.
Thank you, Chief. Councilwoman Gray.
Thank you. I was just going to say, I think the chief hit on most things, but when I was recruiting for probation parole for the state, our biggest problem was in getting different cultures was having the job description in different languages. And also, a lot of people can't write, but I see that you're saying that you have a class to try to help people learn to write, and they're not physically fit. But then you said you try to prepare people, but those seem to be the reasons that we couldn't find candidates for probation parole. There was a lot of overlap in what the requirements were between that and the police department. And like I said, the physical and the writing was where we lost the most people. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Gray. Any other questions from council members? Council President? Council President, you're on mute. Council President?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay, I'm sorry. After this class graduates, how close will we be to our authorized strength?
Right now, Council President, our strength is 319. We have, we'll be 13 down when this class graduate. Maybe 14 down. We have somebody leaving in a couple of weeks, so like 14 personnel will be down.
Okay, so after this class graduates, we'll still be down 14 from authorized strength?
Approximately 14. Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Also, can I add something about recruiting? I think right now, I think Inspector Emery and myself, we're alumni at HBCUs. So we'll definitely be working hard to get those qualified applicants in the colleges and Del Tech, anywhere else that we can get minorities or any qualified applicants. We'll definitely be working real hard with our team to make sure that happens.
Thank you for that. And I think ultimately, we don't want to discount the efforts that you all have already been making. It's just how do we help enhance the work that you're currently doing? So I don't want to discredit the work that you have already been doing. I'm sure you guys have all been working diligently to do that, and based on some of the reporting and plans that have been sent to us. So just want to make that statement also. Any more questions from council members? Okay. All right. I do see hands in the public. What I am going to ask, because I know we've heard from these folks already, if you can more so, I would say, come with a solution, more so based, as far as if you wanted to help with recruitment for towards this update, I would greatly appreciate that as part of the comment. I'm going to start with Monique.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I, again, am begging you all to refrain from voting on any budget increase for Wilmington Police Department until they resolve all open cases of police brutality and assault and predatory behavior that is going on in our community. And to speak upon Chief Tracy's point about there being a national crisis for recruitment of police officers, I'm thinking logically that might coincide with the increase of police brutality and the history of the police department and where it comes from, gathering up the slaves. So if there is a national crisis that you're experiencing for not getting enough officers or enough people to want to be a police officer, maybe that position and that career path has become non-essential, and we need to evolve from that. If no one wants to be a cop, like you said, Chief Tracy, maybe that job needs to be nullified and something else better needs to be created that the people can actually trust. And again, I'm asking the city council to flex and not vote until this 14-year-old child and his charges are dropped and his trauma can stop and he can continue to be the best citizen and give back to his community and do the mutual aid and be the best he can be. Until those charges are dropped and the other cases of police brutality, we should not embolden Wilmington PD with more money. That money should go to the people. I'm done.
Yeah, thank you, Monique. And just so the public knows also, this is not regarding, the update was not regarding funding. So I just want to make sure that's clear also. And Mr. Lewis.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hey, so I know you all like to skip over the fact that they're the 14-year-old being charged for exercising his right and speaking truth to power, but that's not okay. A 14-year-old who is vice president of a school's minority student union and who is an active servant to his community should not be being charged for this. He's totally innocent, and it is a disgrace that you all sit up here and talk about protecting traumatized youth and minority policing recruitment when you have placed wild pigs in our community neighborhoods who are attacking us. The fact that I have to sit up here and listen to murderers and womanizers who attack members of our community makes me sick to my stomach. And if you want to make change and protect traumatized youth, then put your words to action and drop the charges against 14-year-old Simba, who was attacked by white supremacist super predator police officer. And with all that being said, I am still waiting to see Chief Tracy in handcuffs and being held accountable for his actions. So stop silencing members of our community when they speak, because you need to remember who you serve. Now, tell the community what you have to say about this situation, because we are all dying to know. Never talk, and also another tip, never talk about domestic violence when you have people who beat up their spouse on your panel.
Thank you, Lewis. Next, Councilwoman Gray.
Thank you. I just wanted to make it clear to the public who are speaking, I can sympathize with their outrage, but the monies that we tonight passed are so that the police department can continue to function. And really, the money was to clean the police station. So a lot of times when we are funding money, it's not really increasing their budget as much as it's allowing them to continue to function. Like we approved money for more stun guns or the maintenance of them. And now we're approving money for the cleaning of the police station. So I was just trying to clarify that this is not additional budgetary money. You can say anything is budgetary money, but this is really more maintenance. So if you want the police department on the street at all, we do have to maintain various aspects of their job. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Gray. Council President.
Yes, thank you, Chairwoman. So, unfortunately, we can't really speak to the incident that the community members are bringing to our attention, but we not at this meeting at least. But I think we do have to create some kind of forum where their voices can be heard. I think that we must make that a priority. I'm just going to ask staff, if anyone from staff is on the Zoom, if we can please try to reach out to those two community members just to get their contact information. Because again, I know that we're limited and we don't have direct jurisdiction, but we do have a voice. And I think it's important for us to let the community know that we are listening to them, and that we will try to accommodate at least having a forum that's fair, where we can at least hear and possibly discuss the events that they're talking about, as long as it's okay with I think it's Simba. So I do think that's important that we have to create some type of forum where we can listen to them. So staff, if anyone on staff can reach out and get their information, I would appreciate it, please.
Thank you, Council President.
And just as a follow-up, I'm sorry. I know it was said repeatedly that we're in a pandemic and that it's a crisis that we can't recruit officers. So it would seem that we would at least have a specific group that would focus entirely on recruiting minorities. And for us not to have that is very disheartening, especially when it's been a cry from council for many years about the lack of diversity on our police department. I appreciate the effort that has gone into it, but the fact that we don't have a specific group that's tasked with that, we really need to pay attention to that immediately. So I'm just asking that group be created as soon as possible and if we can help, please allow us to. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Council President. And that can also be part of the disparity study piece as well. Council President. Just wanted to add that in as well. Because that could be something that's looked at in that as well. And I will say, I think it may be important to, I know, and Councilman Gray can correct me if I'm wrong, but I know that you can probably have more of the discussion regarding cases, for example, maybe inside the inter-governmental and judiciary committee to talk more in detail about the case that was talked about this evening in more detail. So that, again, like we said, that the public can have more conversation in that component about it, if that is a possibility. Just wanted to add that. All right, and then our last speaker for this evening, Mr. Collin, and please keep your comments regarding the recruitment piece.
Yeah, my comments are actually to all of the points of the discussion. I just touched briefly on everything. It'll be pretty brief. So Chairwoman Dixon, council members, my fellow proletariat community members on the call tonight. So if this MMPI test is, as the chief confirmed, is the standard around the US, it isn't working. We know that the police officers are more likely than any other occupation to engage in domestic violence. That's an indisputable fact. So, I mean, like I just don't approve, of adding more police officers to our community, 19 more, when, that's the standard that they have to reach, which obviously is not good enough already. And I was wondering, Chief Tracy, if your nephew took that test or if he was absolved of it, and just because he didn't show any judgment when he acted on impulse on an anti-Trump comment on a 14-year-old Black queer child. And the proletarian class does not need more police officers. Even in a pandemic, the city spends most of its money on cops, including new cops. And the city solves almost no crimes. We know what the murder rate is that they solve. It's very low. We need 19 to do anything else in the community but cops. Again, urging you all to use your power just to reach out in your official capacity to drop Simba's case. Not to mention Black cops helped arrest him too. I think we need to talk about transforming public safety, sorry. A theory known as abolition, to start from the ground up and establish new public safety institutions that actually keep people safe. We can hire plenty of Black peace officers. Right now, the state agents respond with arms to mental health checks. We can do better. You all have power. And I encourage you to read Angela Davis' work on police abolition. It's not negative. It's not about tearing down, but building anew. Why not innovate and be the best police department in the whole country? We must recognize we have the ability to do this. And you all have the power to do this. And, the proletarians, the people, the workers of, the world, the workers of Wilmington deserve better than a police department that, constantly adds new officers, that are tested to this standard, which does not work. We need to start from the ground up because nothing in this whole situation works, right? There's so many issues. And I think that abolition is a better strategy than, reactionary, reforms to, different issues that arise. I think we need to have more of an imagination when it comes to policing and not just react to, these terrible things that happen each time they happen, because that will just go on forever. And that doesn't change or solve the core problem. So with that, I conclude my statement. Free Simba and save Simba. Use your power.
Thank you, Mr. Collin. Councilman Johnson.
I again wanted to reiterate, I think what my colleagues tonight have said, is that reimagining policing is certainly something that City Council is not only looking at, but we are really striving towards. I mean, in fact, you mentioned Professor Angela Davis. I actually know Professor Davis and have reached out to experts looking at how we can reimagine policing. It's not as easy as abolishing a department, unfortunately, you need to reimagine what the department is. And so we certainly hear you, we understand you. Trust me, you know, I've had these talks with council president, you know, we are looking at these issues. But, you know, we are down in manpower right now. So, you know, we do need to replenish, at least to have a baseline amount of officers on the street, because policing is very hard and it's very rewarding career, but it's a very difficult career. And that's why a lot of officers need those support services that we're working to get them. So it's stressful all around. We certainly hear you, but, you know, trust us, we are working on those plans. If you have plans, please not only email Chairwoman Walsh, but also Vice Chair Dixon, and as well as me. If you have ideas about how we could reimagine the Wilmington Police, please send us those ideas because we are looking for them. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Johnson. And I think for regarding and to add to what Councilman Johnson said, it are two that I know we heard the most from this evening. As Council President had asked, could you put your information into the chat for us so that we can do follow-up with you following, so that our staff can get that information. Yeah, if you can just type it into the chat, that would be helpful for us. So if you can send it directly to, I would say if you can send it directly to Monique's point, can you send it and can you actually just send it to me? Just contact information for us to follow up with you. Council President wanted that information for us to follow up with you. Thank you. And you can always call us also at the office, which is 302-576-2140 to reach any of us. And then also feel free to reach out to me by email, which is rjdixon@wilmingtonde.gov. And I can put that into the chat for you all also. And so I'll put an office number. That will conclude our meeting for this evening, but I did, before I want to do that, just let you know that the ordinance will be on the agenda for April 1st from the ordinance 21-14 that was passed earlier. That will be after we have our budget address from the mayor. And thank you again, Chief and Inspector Emery, as well as Captain Bowers for being with us this evening to give us an update on the work that you're doing currently and giving us an update on the recruitment process. And with that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Hold on.
So moved.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right. Thank you all for attending this evening. And again, thank you to our attendees who also participated in our meeting as well. Thank you again, and you all have a great evening.
Same to you. Bye.
Thank you. Be safe, everyone.